Hey, I'm Melissa Paris, and I race AMA Pro Racing in the Daytona Sportbike class.
Cycle Sports TV had the privilege to spend some time with AMA Pro Daytona Sportbike racer Melissa Paris. We talk about how Melissa got the riding bug, her struggles as a racer, and her relationship with her husband, AMA Superbike Champ, Josh Hayes.
Currently, I'm kind of doing a privateer effort, so basically like my own team, and that means I get to do everything from trying to find sponsors to making sure stuff gets built. Luckily, I have a lot of good friends around me that make it happen. Otherwise, there's no way I'd get to be racing. Racing is pretty much the only thing I can fathom putting this much work into.
Most racers that compete at Melissa's level begin their riding careers as children. For Melissa, this was not the case.
So when I was growing up, no one in my family was into motorsports. We had 5 kids, so it wasn't anything that we could have afforded. So played a lot of the normal sports, but I think having 4 brothers, I kind of never put a distinction between what the girls should do, what the boys should do. Like, I just wanted to have fun. So naturally, when I went away to college and my boyfriend had a sport bike, it never occurred to me not to want to. So yeah, I was 20 years old before I ever learned how to ride a motorcycle. He taught me how to ride, and I was riding in the canyons a lot. So I was 20 years old, ditching school, ditching work, go take my bike up to Palomar and basically do laps up and down a public road. And I'm super lucky that a great group of friends found me and took me to the racetrack before I had a chance to really hurt myself riding on the street. When people ask me, I usually tell them that my first bike was an FZR 600 because that was the first bike that I really got to ride. But the truth of the matter is that before that, I bought off a coworker for $1,000 a 1986 Yamaha FZ 600 before the FZR. It was like so messed up. Like, to go straight, you had to like hold the handlebars like sideways because it was so twisted and bent up. And so my friends took me out to a parking lot, and I'm on the thing, I could barely reach the ground, and they're trying to teach me how to work the clutch because I didn't even know how to drive a stick shift car. So I'm trying to figure it out, and I kept toppling over. Like, I just kept falling down, and it was awful. Like, I mean, tears like you can't believe. Like, I knew I wanted to ride. I'd ridden on the back enough to know it was something I wanted to do, but like I literally couldn't make it from one side of the parking lot to the other without just tipping over. It was pathetic. So my boyfriend like literally like packed the thing up, put it in the garage, and was like, obviously this isn't for you, so let's do something else.
If you've ever seen Melissa on the track, you would assume that racing came naturally to her. That couldn't be further from the truth.
I'm not sure that there's anybody in the world that could be less of a natural at this than I am. And I try to tell that to people that I meet all the time when they're like, man, I'm so frustrated. And I was like, thank God there's no video of me the first day, because it was so bad. Like, it was awful. And if it wasn't for the fact that another friend of mine was like, hey, let's try it again. And we got a Ninja 250 so I could reach the ground. And like literally, even then I was so scared, like, and I was afraid of my own shadow at that time in my life. So I was afraid to like ride around on the streets. And I'll never forget, my buddy Arash is literally on the passenger seat riding with me. So like at stoplights, like he's putting his feet down with me, like, because I was just like, what if I stall it? What if I do this? What if I drop it and I can't pick it up? Like, I was terrified. But then, within a day or two of riding like that, I'm like, all right, this is fun. And then a month later, I wanted a 600, and that's how I ended up with that FZR that I always tell people was my first bike. And it was no gem either. That poor thing was in sad shape. Salvage title, naturally, as a college student. Half the bodywork was missing. What was left was cracked and held together with a handful of MSF safety course stickers. I mean, it was pretty sad.
At this point, you would think that with a beat-up secondhand 600 and a lack of confidence in her riding, that the racetrack would be the last place that Melissa would wind up. Surprisingly, it would not be long before this starving college student answered the call to the track.
Less than a year, really, I'm pretty sure. It must have been less than a year of riding before I actually did a track day. I had that FZR for probably 6 months or so, and then I realized I could get financed on a new motorcycle. And I went and got a CBR 600 in '03 when they first came out with the new one with the cool undertail exhaust and all the other cool stuff. And like I said, some friends dragged me out to a racetrack, and then I got broke. Then I ran out of money pretty quickly.
So this broke newbie rider with a new bike and a new passion for the track had to find a way to pay for this expensive addiction.
I got that new 600 in 2003, and I did a bunch of track days. Like I think I started doing them like, later towards the end of summer and whatnot. And I got on quickly. I quickly figured out that I wasn't going to be able to pay to do track days because I was a broke college student. So I was wheeling and dealing everything I could. And when I look back, like I rode so much back then because I was like, hey, I'll do registration if you let me ride for free. Or even at the Keith Code School, he'd let me, be a turn worker for half the day and then ride the other half, or help a mechanic fix crash bikes and ride. And it was really when I started helping out at that school and some of the other people that I was riding with, and I was as fast as them, and they were all club racing. That was when I was like, all right, let's do this. So I think it was like midway through the season in 04 where I was like, all right, let's go racing. My actual first race was pretty nerve-wracking. You had to do a race school to get a race license, which again, I didn't have the money for, but luckily for me, I've been helping out at Keith's school, so he was nice enough to give me a certificate saying that I'd taken his race class. So I remember showing up and just, I was so nervous. I mean, if you could have seen me, I'm on this beat up old bike. Like, it's not like how it is now where you see novices with, suspension and exhaust and nice fancy stuff. Like I literally had a street bike with primer gray race plastics on it and a duct tape number plate. Like I just wanted to do it. And I was really, really nervous, like all through practice, like having a hard time. But as I was rolling out onto the racetrack for that first race, like on the warm-up lap, I remember suddenly being like, these are all the same people I ride track days with. This is no different, except now no one's gonna yell at me for like passing too close. And I don't think I've ever been so nervous as I was on that grid, but like the instant that the green flag went, it was like literally like I'd been set free. So it was like, hooked instantly. I knew in my heart it was that I wanted to take racing as far as I could. I don't think I was ready to verbalize it because I was a mid-pack novice rider. So it's like, what are you gonna do? Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go race AMA Pro. But I knew like in my heart that I wanted to figure out how to go as fast as I could and race against the best people that I could.
Melissa now has a new passion and a taste for competition. With race number 1 under her belt, it is clear to Melissa what she now needs to do: compete. But the realities of becoming a motorcycle racer can be harsh.
My first couple years of racing were pretty rough. Like I was on such a budget, and I was getting advice from anybody that would give it to me, which is something that, if I could do it over again, I might have been a little bit more selective about who I listened to. And, I mentioned that I used to ride a lot, and probably I would have been better served to have ridden less and on better equipment. So my bike was pretty ratty. I was the one trying to maintain it myself. I was riding on one set of tires like a couple weekends in a row. And I got really down on myself because I'm like, I don't understand why these other people are getting faster than I am. Like I kind of hit this wall on the 600. Especially racing at Willow Springs, you turn expert after 3 weekends. So now here I am thrown out. I'm racing with experts, and I was getting really frustrated. And my friends basically staged an intervention on me and convinced me to give up the 600 and start racing 125s. So I did that, and I started getting a little faster. And I was like, oh, okay, started getting my confidence and getting my feet under me, and really, really enjoyed it. Started to think all right, I'm making progress, and if I keep making this progress, then who knows, what I might be able to get done. For one, the bike was just less intimidating, At that time in my life, I was, a 115-pound girl trying to ride a big 600 that had no, I didn't have the experience to get the suspension working. I didn't know how to say what it was doing. I couldn't keep tires on the thing that were in good shape. Whereas I could get on a 125 and a set of tires could realistically last me all weekend, and I could afford to buy tires for the next weekend. And I was dating someone at the time who was able to keep the thing running, 125 can be a little maintenance intensive, but at the same time it afforded me a chance to learn to work on something that was really simple. And knowing that if I needed to put a piston in my bike, I could do it myself, and I could change wheels and things. I didn't have to ask for help. So I think it was a lot of things that helped my confidence up. But the thing was easier to ride. It was no fun to ride slowly, so it sort of forced you to ride it quickly. And I was racing with a group of 10 or 12 people that that were pretty good and were safe, and we could race close with each other, and it wasn't like the 600 class where maybe they'd knock you down for 30th place, you know. So I think it was that. I was racing with my friends. We were racing hard with each other, and I just kind of started to, you know, really get my legs underneath me. My dreams definitely exceeded what I thought my abilities were for a really long time, and it was actually a long time before I really started to believe in myself. I went through a couple of seasons on the 125, actually went endurance racing on the 600 in 2007, and about midway through 2007 I was near to throwing in the towel because I just felt like I wasn't getting any faster, you know. I'd gotten back on the 600 and I was just, my confidence was done in. I was sick of getting beat, and I was trying so hard, not getting anywhere. And then one weekend, there's an opportunity for me to go back to racing a 125. The Celtic Racing guys let me ride their 125 at Miller Motorsports Park during the AMA weekend. And it was probably the first time I rode on a bike that had really been set up well. It was running well. Someone who knew how to set up a motorcycle had gotten the thing working pretty good. And I got on the podium that weekend, you know, out of like a 30 rider field. And that was probably the day when I was like, okay, I just need some support. Like, I just need help. And whether that was a good bike or a fast bike, good suspension, or even if it was just having a crew behind me that was telling me, go get him, Tiger, we believe in you. I mean, whatever it took. I mean, all the right things came together that weekend. And then I think that's what really got me going. And after that is when I did a season racing 250. I did 2 seasons on the 250, and I think that really, I spent 2 years racing for wins, and that was kind of, I think, what got my confidence going. I think part of the problem on the 600 was that, like, my head was just done in, you know. I'd been beaten so many times, and something I still talk about is when you can see the front, you're willing to stick your neck out there. And I think I was so far inside my comfort zone, like so afraid to like stick my neck out there and try something different to go better, that being on the 250 and having it come a little bit easier, for some reason the Grand Prix bikes have always come a little bit more natural to me. And seeing the front, I was willing to really stick my neck out there and try hard and then see a result from that, you know what I mean? And learn like, oh, I can do that. Like, you know, whereas before it was like, I can't. Like, I can't go to that brake marker. But now if I'm racing for the win, you know, maybe I'm going to find a way to make that happen. So I think getting to race at the front of, you know, a fairly competitive field is probably what helped me like wrap my head around like taking risks, calculated risks, but taking some risks.
Melissa would start to see some real success in the 250 class. This built up her confidence as a racer, but what would it take to get her back on a 600?
So the first year I was on the 250, in 2008, I had my Honda, the RS250, and I had a CBR 600. I was supposed to race both of them. But by about midway through the year, I'd parked the 600, and I had decided that I was never going to be able to ride a 4-stroke. That was how I felt. I was like, well, I ride a 4-stroke and I get my butt kicked, or I ride a 250 and I'm smoking people. So I give up on 4-strokes, I'll never be good at it. And at the end of the year, my mechanic was like, I don't believe that. He's like, I just think you're struggling on that bike. Let me build you something different. So he put together an R6 and we took it to Daytona, and within 3 laps I was like, I'll give it one more try because this thing's pretty fun. I really like this actually. So it blew up a lap later, but I was intrigued. So that winter he put together 2 R6s for me, and we came up with a plan where I would contest the US GPRU championship because we felt pretty strongly I could win that, and I really wanted a national championship to my name. So we spent that whole winter getting my 250 working good, and then he built some 600s too. And what we did was we picked 4 or 5 AMA nationals that we were going to go to, and they were all tracks that I'd been to, and I'd either done times on my 250 that were fast enough times that would qualify me for a 600 grid, or I'd done it on a 600 before. The idea was we weren't going to go anywhere that we didn't know we weren't going to be successful, you know. And a lot of times we were able to plan it where maybe US GPRU, I'd be racing somewhere on the 250 one weekend, and then the AMA weekend might be the next weekend. So we really like maximized everything for success. And it was just like a pretty phenomenal year. Like, you know, we went to Daytona and I finished like 21st or something, like highest placing woman in the Daytona 200. And honestly, like leaving there was kind of like bittersweet because I had no idea what to expect going into it. But then afterwards, I'm like, oh, if I hadn't done this, I would have been farther up. If I hadn't done that, I'd have been farther up. And it was just like, oh, that's so frustrating. But I think that was a huge confidence booster because I was like, man, yeah, there are a lot of people in front of me, but there are a lot of people behind me too. So, all right, and I'm still trying to figure this 600 thing out. And as the season went on, I was winning races on my 250. We were taking the 600 club racing, and I was doing well on that, and just having a ball. And unbeknownst to me, my mechanic submitted for a wild card for me for World Supersport at Miller, and they approved it, which was just like mind-boggling because I'd only ever done one pro race on it, which had been at Daytona. So my next pro race was a World Championship event. And I mean, even my husband was like, you're not gonna qualify. It's just not possible. And so when I did, it was like, all right, like I said, like it's like a freight train, like starting to build momentum, and I was pretty excited. And I mean, we suffered a mechanical in the race, but things were going good. The season was getting better and better, and then we showed up to VIR, and it all came to a halt when there's a big pile up in turn one, and I ended up with a broken tib fib. So spent 2 weeks, got a titanium rod in it, spent 2 weeks trying to rehab it and tried to get back on the 250 because I was a point out of my 250 national championship with 2 races to go. So I went to Ohio and limped my way to like 6th place or something, and missed the last AMA race of the year, and then showed up to the last 250 race of the year in Palm Beach, and it was going to be like a win it or bin it sort of situation. Like I had to win it to win the championship, and actually crashed fighting for the lead. So that's the one that got away, that 250 championship that I wanted so badly. Like I was so mad, we literally picked the bike up, put it in the truck. It's sitting in my garage now. Like I haven't touched it. I didn't drain the fluids out of it, nothing. Like the thing's like a pile of molten nastiness now because I was just so furious. Like that was supposed to be my championship. At the award ceremony, like I remember having to restrain myself. If I wasn't on crutches, I probably would have snatched the #1 plate out of poor Adam's hands. Like I was ready to fight him for it. But unfortunately, like I said, I was riding a motorcycle but on crutches.
So far, we've learned about Melissa's unlikely entry into motorcycle racing and her struggles to be competitive. Now we're going to dive into Melissa's personal life and her relationship with her husband, AMA Superbike champ, Josh Hayes.
Being married to a successful pro motorcycle racer has probably an equal number of pros and cons. You know, the pros are that I have someone who understands me. He knows what I'm going through to some degree. You know, when people are telling you you're crazy to go race a motorcycle with a broken leg, you know, I have my husband in my corner who understands that if you told me you were going to cut off my leg, but I was going to get that #1 plate, it was probably something I was going to go do, you know, and he supported me, and he did everything he could to help me be successful in that situation. There's nothing, I mean, I don't think any racer in our paddock's wife would support me the way Josh supported some of the decisions I've made. So I'm super lucky in that respect. But the other side of it is that we have 2 very different career paths. You know, he jumped on the scene and was phenomenal from the start, and he's had a lot of great support from the start. And he's never really been the one that had to go scramble to try to find money to go racing. And you know, the con to that is that jealousy is a really ugly thing, especially when it's pointed at your husband. And it's the truth. I mean, this year we encountered it when I was having such a miserable season and he's having the best season of his life. So it's like you're leaving the racetrack and this, you know, Josh is like, yeah, like I'm the champ, and I'm in tears. And it's like he doesn't want to celebrate for fear of making me feel bad, and I don't want to cry for myself because I don't want to bring him down from his high. So it gets complicated, you know, in some ways, but the hardest part of it is what people assume. People assume that your husband, you know, is a factory Yamaha rider, so Yamaha must give you bikes and they must give you everything. And oh, Josh makes lots of money. He's rolling in the money, and he's probably bankrolling your whole race program. And these are things that just aren't true. You know, the fact is that I do get support. And I'd be kidding myself to say that being married to Josh doesn't help open doors. If nothing else, I know who to talk to. I know what number to call and who to ask. But by no means does Josh bankroll my race efforts? You know, we have the same responsibilities as anyone else, and we'd be stupid to bankrupt ourselves so that I can chase this dream. You know, Josh and I had a really frank discussion when I decided to go AMA racing, where he's like, if you want to do this, you have to do it just like everybody else. And I respect him for that, because, you know, at the end of the day, if I want an extra set of tires, I don't have him, like, you know, frowning at me for it. It's my decision to make with my money. And I think the only thing that separates me from a lot of the other privateers is that I know what we're missing because I see other people getting it. No, I mean, it's true. I mean, I'm super lucky. I mean, let's be honest. I don't have to have a regular 9-to-5 job to pay the mortgage, so I'm super thankful for that. You know, my husband provides for me. That's huge. Like, a lot of people don't have that. In a lot of ways, I compare myself to some of the kids who are coming up. You know, they get to live with their parents still. They don't have to pay rent. You know, so, you know, dad's doing what he can to help them, but can't, you know, pay for everything. So I think it's in some ways kind of a similar situation. Like, I don't have to worry about, you know, the basics. Like, you know, my husband keeps food on the table, so I'll be eternally grateful for that. Josh and I don't talk about our riding very much. I mean, anyone who's married knows how hard it is to teach their spouse how to do something. We fought it for a long time, and there are a lot of tears. I mean, people back in 06 and 07 might have really thought our relationship wasn't going to survive if they saw us at the racetrack. I remember at Las Vegas, for example, him and I walking the track together. And when I came in, when it was done, someone asked me, is everything okay? Because they could see us in every corner gesturing wildly, because we just use such a different language when we talk about things, and we ride motorcycles so differently. Josh has always ridden production bikes. I came up riding more Grand Prix bikes, so we look for a lot of different things, and let's be honest, it comes a lot more naturally to him. Some of the things I'm struggling with are things he doesn't even think about. So there are times where he'll help me, you know, especially if I have a specific question. Hey Josh, turn 7, you know, where's your apex at? If it's something like that, you know, he could be helpful. But it's not like people think I have like this living coach. I can count the number of times we've ridden on a racetrack together on one hand. It just never seems to work out that way. And another thing which I'm constantly reminding him is anyone could be my riding coach, but he's the only one that could be my husband. And that's really what I need out of him. So rather than maybe telling me what the line is or how to set up my motorcycle, if anything, he's my shoulder to cry on, or, you know, my emotional support. It's hard for me to say what my goals for the next 5 years are, because I feel like I'm a little bit behind what my last 5 years goal was. You know, these last couple of years have been a real struggle. Things are starting to come around right now, which is so exciting for me. Like, I really got this, like, the wind's back in my sails, so I'm pretty excited about that. My immediate goal right now is to continue to go faster. I want to show up at each racetrack and go faster than I've gone there before, because I've kind of been a little stagnant the last 2 years, which is probably the most frustrating thing in the world. I just want to move up. To me, I've never been the one that says, like, I want to be the first girl to do this, or I want to be the fastest girl here. Like, it's never been about that. I just want to go as fast as I can. I want to beat as many people as I can. And I want to make sure that when I decide that I'm done racing, that I know I put it all out on the table. And I know I'm never that person that's looking back saying, well, if I only tried a little harder, because that just seems like the saddest story ever. So we're at Auto Club Speedway today with Track Tactics. I'm a rider coach. It's really like the first time I've done it like this formally. Brock, the owner, approached me at New Orleans. He'd heard that I was struggling to find money to continue racing. And he's like, let me help you out. You know, let me hire you to be a rider coach. And it was like one of those things where just timing was everything. And, you know, we're not far from where I live during the summer. So we're here, and I'm working with some level 1 and level 2 students, and it's cool. Like, honestly, it's pretty fun. Like, because these are people that are like just getting into the sport, and it's like a chance for me to hopefully be able to show them something that I've learned along the way. And if nothing else, it's humbling, because it reminds me how lucky I am to have had the experiences I've had. Like, because these people are just as excited about riding motorcycles as I was when I did my first track day. So, and it's cool to see people like experiencing that. Aside from racing, this is something I love. I don't think when racing ends that the love of riding motorcycles goes away. So, for sure, like, I mean, if there's someone that I could help, I have to help them, because there's been 100,000 people that have helped me along the way. So, I mean, you have to give that back. I think the best advice I could give to anyone who, whether it's racing motorcycles or being a doctor or anything that's hard to do, is like, you just can't give up, because there are so many times where I was like on the cusp of being like, this just isn't happening. I mean, from the day I first threw a leg over a motorcycle, you know, until a couple weeks ago, it was like, there are a lot of times where I was like, all the signs are telling me that this isn't gonna happen. But then just when you're about to give up, it seems like something comes through and things start to click. And if you want something bad enough, the only thing that will keep you from getting to it is yourself. So you just gotta keep plugging away. You can always check out my Facebook page, which is just facebook.com/MelissaParis13. And then I have links to my website, melissaparis.com. I'm on Twitter, MellyGirl13. I'm a social media addict, so definitely very, very involved on all of those things. And if people want to get involved, I've got t-shirts for sale and stickers for sale and all sorts of things. And I mean, the fans and the people that follow racing, I think, are a big part of why I haven't given up this far. I mean, if I could tell you the emails and the letters I get, like, honestly, I read them all, and it's, Josh will tell you, more than one have made me cry. So I definitely appreciate all the people that come out and watch and cheer us on. And it definitely keeps us going, pushing forward.